At midnight, when the bells of Notre Dame cooled from their last trembling reverberation, the stone creatures arranged around the cathedral shook off centuries of stillness. Chiseled wings unfurled like forgotten manuscripts, claws flexed, and eyelids incised by medieval chisels slid apart to reveal glimmers of molten copper. For the next 7 hours, Paris would never suspect its oldest detectives were again on the move. Eligius, whose perch overlooked the spire until fire and heartbreak removed it, served as the de facto chief. He rehearsed each mission with a mason's precision, though his body was shaped like a dog and his muzzle sported permanent drool. Beside him crouched Hilo Ise, once a cathedral drainpipe, now an archivist of the city's secret dreams. The pair had solved arson in Montmartre, blackmail in Belleville, and the perplexing affair of the clockwork pigeon that tried to assassinate them. Tonight, however, an impossible case awaited them. The appointment had been arranged by Al, post-real Al's, sworn to discretion, were the Gargoyle's messengers. A single feather had landed on the parapet, bearing braille bumps pressed into its shaft. Héloïse read by touch, bowing her granite head, client Elise Moreau. Occupation, violinist with Lorches des Roues Invisibles. Complaint, theft of her future. Lepton, left bank below Pont Saint-Louis, midnight +10. Ligius rumbled satisfaction. The hour matched their awakening. With a chorus of grinds and groans, the detective squadron leapt from the buttresses and glided into the night. Paris saw only shadows flitting between chimneys. Moonlight skidded across slate roofs and gilded the river like unspooled silver tape. Near the pont, where willow branches stirred the water, Elise Moreau waited. She wore a coat the color of wet ink, and beneath her dark glasses the movement of her eyes hinted at absent sight. A violin case rested against a mooring ring. Her cane, tipped with a brass ferrule, traced patient circles on the cobblestones. When the gargoyles landed, she neither startled nor bowed. She merely said, "I hear wings carved in 1260. Welcome," Eligius introduced the team himself. Heloise's 3 twin cherubim, called Pierre and Pierrette, who specialized in infiltration, and Grintia, a stump-nosed imp who smelled guilt across entire arrondissement. Formalities complete, the violinist opened her case. Instead of an instrument, the interior held curled sheets of blank parchment. Still, faint music tingled in the air like an echo of a melody not yet composed. "These pages carried my future," she said. 48 measures I have not performed. Lovers I have not met. Mistakes I have not mended. Written in ink only my fingers can read, across the surface of the Seine itself. Elise examined a sheet. "I feel nothing," she admitted. "No braille, no raised lettering." Elise nodded. The ink was sympathetic to vibrations, not pressure. When I practiced by the water, waves reflected the notes into my skin. Yesterday at dawn, I came to rehearse and found the river blank. Someone siphoned the script from its current. Without it, my life will untune. I'll play concerts chosen by others, marry the wrong woman, die on a date misprinted by fate. Please find who stole my invisible score and return it before sunrise, when futures ripen into the present. Eligius stroked his granite chin, sending sparks of powdered stone into the wind. Theft from a body of water," he mused, "requires a vessel or a spell. Either way, the culprit left traces." Grinchot inhaled deeply, his nostrils flaring like bellows. "I taste alchemy," he growled. "Lead, quicksilver, and longing." Heloise flipped an internal ledger. "Only 3 practitioners in Paris work with mercurial longing. Madame Argent at the Mint Museum, Dr. Filigrane on Rue des Requilles, and one other." Élodie Lacroix. Elise finished quietly. The gargoyles noticed how her grip tightened on the cane. "My former duet partner. We auditioned for the conservatoire together." She coveted not the music, but the applause that follows silence. We parted when I refused to share a grant. If she has my future, she will play it before I can. The gargoyles exchanged glances. Motive established. Eligius assigned tasks. Pierre and Pierrette would probe the mint. Heloise, the doctor. Eligius himself would confront Elodie. Grencho remained with the client to protect her from timeline recoil, a hazard of incomplete destinies. The gargoyles dispersed, splashing moonlight from their wings. Elegies headed toward Rue des Martyrs, where Elodie rented an attic. The spireless cathedral receded behind him like a remorseful giant. Yet he pressed on through drafts of soot and perfume. Landing on a wrought iron balcony, he peered through lace curtains. Inside, Elodie stood before a cracked mirror, drawing her bow across empty air, the gesture smooth, yet voiceless. No water, no ink, no scroll. But on the floor lay a shallow copper basin, filled with shimmering liquid. The gargoyle tasted a droplet. River salt diluted by something sharper. Disappointment distilled. Copper basin aside, a second clue almost escaped notice. A wristwatch beating no time. Its hands were absent, yet it ticked regardless, each click cutting the silence like miniature scissors. Eligius pocketed the watch and withdrew. Meanwhile, Pierre and Pierrette infiltrated the mint by scaling gutters shaped like laurels. They found Madame Argent asleep among presses and coins. Her dreams spilled visible text. Devase the denier, ascend the crown. But none concerned stolen futures. The twins moved to the chemical lab, where retorts still steamed. A ledger noted an order. 250 m solution of argentum chloride for chromatographic revelation bio de filigrane. They extracted a tear of the solution and retreated. Heloise infiltrated Dr. Filigran's atelier through a ventilator. The doctor, an elderly man with mercury stains up to his elbows, conversed with a caged raven. History is pathology, he told the bird, and the cure is anticipation. On a marble slab lay parchment strips wet with silver. Heloise loomed from the shadows, teeth bared. Filigran sighed. I expected Notre Dame's enforcers would appear. Be gentle with my age, Mademoiselle Gargoyle. I only provided a reagent. Do not steal people's futures. I expose them. He offered a glass vial sealed with black wax. Return this to the rightful path. I have finished my role. When the gargoyles reconvened under Pont Neuf, dawn threatened the horizon with faint apricot. They pooled evidence, the copper basin of disappointment, the watch that ticked without hands, the argentum solution, and Filigrene's sealed vial. Elise listened, face lifted, as if light fell through her closed eyelids. The thief needed silver chloride to see the invisible notation, Heloise explained. But why collect it with a basin rather than from the source? Eligius turned the basin over, stamped on the bottom, Institute of Tidal Research. He cursed softly, granite grinding granite, for he understood. At La Villette's abandoned reservoir stood the Institute, glass-roofed palace where scientists once coaxed tides into fountains for exhibition. After floods ruined funding, the place lay dark, except for occasional clandestine projects. The gargoyles and their client arrived as the hour approached 4. Fog clung to broken balustrades, each step dripped. Inside, floodlights illuminated a stage built above the drained central pool. At its center, a girl in a crimson gown raised a violin Elise's twin instrument, Elodie Lecroix. Around her stood metal arches strung with crystal wires. In the empty basin below, 24 spectators sat on folding chairs wearing headsets linked to the wires. A hush held them. Suspense fermented. Elise inhaled, recognizing the pre-concert silence. She is about to premiere my future, she whispered. If an audience hears it first, the world will cement that timeline and I will become its echo. Eligius motioned for stealth. But stone feet are not made for quiet floors. A gargoyle's talons scraped tile. Elegius glanced up, eyes widening, then narrowed with practiced poise. "Good evening, statues," she called. "Have you come to judge my concert? Paris will thank me. I rescue unrealized art from obscurity." Elegius stepped forward, chest broad as a battlement. "Return what you stole. Futures are not prizes for the greedy." Elodie smiled tractably. "Oh, but I purchased it from the river for the price of my regret." She gestured to the copper basin, now resting at her feet. Inside shimmered a pale script, the stolen notation still liquid, still living. Hai-Louis noticed tubes running from the basin to the headsets. "You mean to inject the future into your listeners?" Elodie nodded. "They're investors. They will carry these themes into boardrooms, fashion shows, and advertising jingles. Culture is the only currency that never crashes. By sunrise, the melody will be charting on every speaker in Europe." Gringio snarled, momentarily forgetting his duty of timeline containment. A standoff, gargoyles on the catwalk, Elodie on stage, audience below trapped by cables of promise. Elise tapped forward. "Elodie," she said, voice resonant despite softness, "you once told me applause is a door no one closes on you. Hear me. A door seized never truly belongs. Let me walk through it with you." Elodie's bow trembled. For a heartbeat, potential pivoted, reconciliation or riot. Behind the scenes, Pierre and Pierrette noticed a control console marked Tide Engine. Filigrane's vial would fit the reagent inlet. They reasoned the engine pulsed electromagnetic waves to keep the stolen ink in suspension. An idea formed. While dialogue stalled, the cherub slipped to the console. They unscrewed the inlet cap and poured in Filigrane's vial, not silver chloride, but its antidote, salt water infused with release. The engine shuddered. Pipes sang like organ notes. On stage, the basin frothed, script dissolving back into featureless water. Elodie felt the melody fade from within the violin. The notes under her fingers turned blank. Rage cracked across her features. She drew her bow in an aborted screech and lunged for Elise. Before impact, Elegius dropped from the catwalk, intersecting. Stone met flesh, but careful. He pinned the violinist's wrists with talons that left no blood, yet brooked no escape. With the engine reversed, tubing siphoned the water toward grates that led inevitably back to the Seine. Audience members removed their headsets, confused. Some wept, having tasted a future, then lost it. Others felt lighter, unburdened of creative debt they never owned. In the draining basin, the stolen possibility reunited with the river's flow. Elise knelt, palm against the metal floor, listening to currents coursing beneath. "I can sense the score returning." Smiling, she turned toward Elodie. "Your ambition still holds merit. Let us negotiate a real duet, one we compose together." Elodie lay still. Tears glimmered. "I thought you left me behind." Elodie's answered, "I merely walked my path. Let the concert hall of tomorrow have room for both our footsteps." The gargoyles loosened their hold. Police sirens howled in the distance, called by someone among the investors. Elegies whispered, "Time to vanish." The gargoyles gathered Elegies and lifted her onto Hai-Louis's back. With flaps stirring dust, they exited through the broken roof, leaving Elodie to face mortal authorities but also her own choices. They landed again beside the Seine, where lilac daylight spread. Elise opened her violin case. This time the instrument rested inside, strings humming gently though no bow touched them. She drew it out and played. The melody unfurled across water, invisible but present. Gulls altered flight to carve the air along its lines. Barges slowed to keep tempo. Lovers on benches found their pulses synchronized. The score was back where it belonged, not owned but shared. When the last harmonic dissolved into daylight, Elise thanked her guardians. "How do I pay you?" Elegius shook his stony head. Payment is for craftsmen. We were carved for purposes beyond coin. Yet Heloise produced the handless watch. Nevertheless, keep this. It measures not hours, but courage. Each tick, a decision made. When you doubt, listen. Elise accepted, fingers brushing its smooth face. Ticks resonated like distant applause. Before returning to Notre Dame, the gargoyles perched on the western balustrade to watch the city waken. Construction cranes still circled the wounded cathedral, yet sunlit hope gilded scaffolding. Every future of Paris is written in invisible ink, Heloise mused. Our task is not to dictate it, only to ensure each dreamer keeps their pen. Eligius rumbled agreement. Grunchoke already snored, pleased. Far below, Elise crossed Pont Saint-Louis, her cane tapping. She could not see the river's glow, yet she felt the directive encoded in ripples. Practice, perform, forgive. She would visit Elodie in custody and propose lessons for young musicians who feared applause more than silence. The future, restored, now welcomed revision. Night came again. On their high ledges the gargoyles returned to stone, lips sealed, wings folded. Yet sometimes a tourist swore, a chimera winked at them, or a winged hound coughed dust that sounded suspiciously like a chuckle. If asked, Parisians had no detectives to name save human ones, but rumors thrummed through gutters and bells alike. Notre Dame's gargoyles solved the case of the stolen future, and on quiet twilights they still patrol, ready to defend the unwritten songs reflected in the Seine.